Hi, everybody. My name is Higgs. I got my good friend Gramps with us, joining us. He's going to be helping me out with this episode. Thank you. This is Higgsfield Industries, the Daily Candle. Appreciate you stopping by and watching. So, we've got a couple things to talk about today. One of which I think we're going to start with is AI trading. That's going to be an interesting one. I really want to talk about that and seeing how the influence of ChatGPT and what else could possibly be coming down the pipeline. We're going to be talking about Jerome Powell and his track record of how he's been doing with his predictions from transitory to what's his most recent one? A soft landing isn't out of the question. We're going to be talking about the potential of a hard landing within the next 2 to 8 months, as well as the repercussions of cutting the interest rates too soon. And we're also going to be talking about the outcomes of what possibly could happen from the 70s. So I guess let's just dive right into it. We can talk about the AI trading. That's kind of something that I've been really thinking about. We're going to be posting a the very first of Higgsfield Industries long form scripted content in the next week or so. I'm writing the script up right now, but we can kind of talk about the surface level stuff that I've been kind of mulling over in my head about the AI wave that's been kind of sweeping over the stock market as well as just people in general. Uh, we can talk about how that's going to be affecting trading and how it's going to be affecting people's jobs. Like, what are your initial thoughts, Gramps, about the whole
Well,
AI thing that's been
well,
coming through?
I mean, obviously, anybody who knows anything about, AI and large language models and all that, or language learning models, whatever they call them, um, they are just getting better. They are a type of technology that, some technology kind of goes forward and then kind of goes backwards a little bit and then goes forwards again. This type of tech, as far as I know, is only going forward. And the interesting bit is, I was doing some research on it, and it's kind of impossible to predict because a video I watched did a kind of a deep dive on how they actually work. And it's interesting because they nobody actually knows how they work exactly. All they really like all the what you can do is you can set up the basis for your language learning model, your chat GPTs or your perplexities, whatever. But how they actually function, nobody really knows the inner workings of it because you get weird you get an abundance of outlier responses whenever you put in a question. So you put in, you use them, you ask it a question, okay, do this for me, and sometimes it'll spit out gold, sometimes it'll spit out a lump of coal, and you're like, wait, but I asked you the same thing, and then it'll there's a probabilistic aspect to it. So all in all, my thoughts are it is going to keep going, but I don't know at what rate. That's my question. I don't know.
Where do
It's
you
very
think we are on the
strange.
adoption curve? I think it's like 40% of adults in the United States know about the software, but I think only single
Well, that's
digits are actually utilizing it.
Well, that's yeah. So that's the interesting bit. That's another very interesting question. From what I've seen, because I have been using ChatGPT for a little bit myself, and what I'm learning about it is that this is something that most people don't know. Although how long that stays the case, I don't know. But it's very it's a very it can be a really good program, but it's also very temperamental, meaning it really depends on the prompts you use. I've been researching prompts. It's very specific on there are specific prompts that you want to use, specific ones you don't want to use, but then there are also specific ones that you may not want to use normally, but then if you combine it with other ones, it'll give you it's kind of learning how to use it is actually pretty complicated in
Yeah,
my estimation.
yeah.
It's way, that is, I think that is one thing that will eventually, okay, of course, eventually, I think if AI just keeps going the way it's going, and I don't see any reason why it's going to stop, eventually. Google will be in trouble. And I mean, I think they just released Google.ai just a couple days ago or something anyway. So they know they're in trouble with the regular Google search thing, Google search engine. But I think it's going to take a little bit of time for people to get used to actually using the AIs, because the AIs are not, at least not the ones I know of, are not smart enough yet
Okay, they're not
to
user
do
intuitive.
yeah, they're not smart enough yet to do what you want them to do unless you really have the
Hold their
exact
hand,
prompts down. Yes,
figuratively.
exactly. Now, if you do know the prompts and if you are good at using them, then you can actually create some pretty incredible stuff. But right now, I think we're pretty early on the adoption curve, because a lot of people, I've seen a lot of videos out there, and just, and also whatever you want to call them, blogs and stuff, saying, oh, AI is overhyped. I tried using Perplexity. I tried using GPT-4, but all I got was a bunch of gobbledygook. And all the AIs are still very susceptible to errors, simple errors,
Yeah, they just
factual
don't know
errors.
how to use it, which is interesting how you bring that up, because I had just read something where over 90% of job recruiters look for look for on people's resume.
Do
90%
they
of
know
them
how to
look for
use
yeah,
know how to use
that you're
GPT-4? Yeah,
able to use
or AIs.
GPT.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's very like that's not a small number. That's you're
No,
talking
it's a skill set. It is a skill set to be able to actually not only utilize the
utilize.
AIs,
Yeah.
but actually get something valuable out of them. And like I say, they are still there is still that issue of they do actually still produce errors. And in fact, GPT-4, they literally have a disclaimer. It'll say like it says I am prone to errors, factual errors, and da 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 da.
Yeah.
So yeah. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, it
it's
is true. It's a new skill set that you say like they're job recruiters are looking for.
so it's interesting that the public is finally getting their ability to utilize these kind of tools,
Hmm.
because as we know, the large trading firms like the famous mathematician turned trader Jim
Jim
Simons,
Simons.
he uses his own AI algorithms for trading in his black boxes. So
Right.
our boy,
That's right.
shout out Kenny G, hello devil.
Hello, Devil.
He uses his patented algorithm for Citadel. So
Hmm.
they're all different kind of versions, if not late or early versions of AI. So
Right.
where do you where do you think that this could go and fit into the trading algorithms? Do you think this would even the playing field, or do you think the people that don't use these very expensive programs are pretty much going to be left in the dust now that people will that utilize them correctly will be able to trade in microseconds? So I could see
Right.
how it could like balance out, but I could see how it could also widen the gap.
It's interesting. So, I mean, obviously, as you know, I like to watch a YouTuber called the Maverick of Wall Street, and he, whatever you think about him, he often decries the algos, the bots, he says so his opinion, this is the opinion of one guy, is that AI is still in his words, it's still effing stupid, because the algos are in his as far as he knows, they're mostly trained to buy on news. They're trained to scan news articles, look for
Yep,
keywords,
yep,
and then they buy on based off of news. And so he was talking about how in the oil market just recently there was a big pump, or a big pump, and then a big sell off, and then another big pump. And basically he was saying it's so unnatural that this, in his estimation, is clearly the work of algos, just because of the way the price action moved. And so his thing is that AI is still pretty stupid, just in general. But of course, this is generally speaking. Obviously, as you mentioned, Jim Simons and Renaissance Capital, I mean, they're something. I think they are the most overall successful hedge fund of all time, or something. And as you say, they use proprietary algorithmic software, trading algorithms, et cetera, et cetera.
yep.
So it's interesting that you bring up the fact that normal quote unquote mom and pop retail traders might now have the option, or the use case for actually utilizing their own AI assisted trading, which so that's a very interesting question. I have been thinking about that myself actually. And here's my kind of like my weird theory about it. So if if widespread adoption does happen sooner rather than later, and if a lot of mom and pop retail traders start using AI to assist their trading, then it only makes sense to me that we are going to see the effects of that because as anybody who's been following the meme stocks, GameStop, BlackBerry, AMC, the retail crowd actually has a lot of sway in the markets. It's one of the reasons why GameStop nearly. I mean, that's why when the head of Interactive Brokers, Thomas Petterfy, came to testify and was grilled by Congress, he said, "I can't believe I still have a job." Why? Because retail traders all got in. So the reason I'm mentioning that is retail traders have shown that if they do get together, they can kind of create this massive amount of you know buying pressure or selling pressure up and down. And so what I'm saying is, if there is mass adoption among the retail crowd, when that happens, it might actually I'm thinking it could create quite a bit of chaos in the markets because you have to believe that these successful algos and high frequency trading firms, et cetera, they are programmed partly with retail in mind, right? I mean, this is why retail gets left holding the bag, and retail is often on the wrong side of trading
Yeah,
because
Kenny's is based off of fear. So if there's no fear
right,
in the market, his
exactly.
algos don't work.
Exactly. And furthermore, the big hedge funds, and this is nothing new, they have utilized a lot of their entry and exit liquidity, or entry and exit points, are based off of what retail is doing. Right? When retail that's why when retail finally capitulates, that's usually when the big money comes and buys in. And then retail gets FOMO, and then they pile in towards the end of the bull run, and they get left holding the bags, and they provide the exit liquidity for the for the big funds. So what I'm saying is, if mass adoption does happen with AI trading, it'll be interesting to see because it could, by proxy, change the very psychology of retail traders. Because if you're if
Yeah.
you're right, because if you're a retail trader and you're just trading based on your own emotions or whatever, okay, well, there is that. We have a lot of many years of data of how retail trades more or less with their retail trading psychology. But
Yep.
now if you start utilizing uh AI, well, then that's going to have an entirely different side of psychology. I mean, whatever that psychology is, machine learning, whatever you want to call it, the
Also,
the
like that's
methodology
what's
is going to be
worse.
something.
I don't think you can call it psychology when you take the emotion out of
Well, so
the
sure. Let's
trade.
go. Let's Now, see, I'm calling it psychology in terms of AI psychology, which I understand. But you're right. I'm kind of bending the terms of it here.
Yeah.
But yes, that is the point I'm making. It's like essentially the results could be wildly. This is what I'm saying. I think there's a potential for a lot of chaos because essentially, if retail does have this mass adoption and then they do start using the AIs, well, then the outcomes of the trades that retail gets in, enters, and exits will, in theory, be. I mean, they should be wildly different from the way they trade and enter and exit now,
Yeah.
and and the pre-existing high frequency trading firms and even Renaissance Capital is now going to have to contend with retail acting in a completely different way trading wise. This is the possibility that I see in the nearest future anyway.
Now, now that affects trading.
Mhm.
So another thing that I was thinking of is how do you think that the AI is going to affect the mining of Bitcoin?
I honestly hadn't thought about that. I don't know enough about the mining of Bitcoin. All I really know is that I if you are a Bitcoin miner or whatever, you have a Bitcoin mining rig, your computer is essentially solving very complicated math problems, and you're using some sort of a mining GPU to do that. You're using a lot of processing power of some kind. I don't know a ton about it. I'm not sure how would AI alter that. I'm not really even sure.
So if if I'm not mistaken, I think you can use AI. Like the reason why like you can't decrypt like the 256 decryption code is because there's
Mhm.
so many different combinations that you would need so much computing power that we don't have access to right now. But AI should be able to crack that eventually. So
Ah,
like
yes, eventually. I see what you're saying. Okay, well,
I
I can offer a little bit of insight into this then, if that's the way
what's
you're looking at it.
because I was going to
So
say the AI would be able to crack these kind of algorithms that the GPUs are solving much more efficiently.
possibly, possibly in the nearest future, but from what I know of AI, we're not there yet. Now, could we get there? Absolutely. But let me offer a little bit of insight into, for example, GPT-4. Okay, ChatGPT, this is the one everyone knows about. I think it's the most popular one right now.
Yeah,
So with ChatGPT, there is it is still a little bit limited. So if you okay, so for those of you who don't know how ChatGPT works, what you do is you start a little quote unquote what's called a conversation, and you let's say you ask it a question and then it gives you an answer, and then what you can do is if you like that answer and you're good, that's fine. But usually what people do is they'll ask it a question, they receive an answer from GPT, it'll just generate a text for you, and then you can keep on going down. You can expand on it. You can ask either more detailed versions of the question. You can ask it to redo its response. You can branch out and use the question as a springboard for something else. Whatever you want to do, you can build upon it to a point. But there is actually a memory limit on GPT-4 currently, where if you go down, if you have a conversation with it or whatever you want to call it, you have a dialogue with it that's long enough, and it does not even that be that long, it's kind of stops remembering, because the way it works is you have your kind of quote unquote conversation with it and you build on it, and then it can reference things you have said before in relation to new and different questions or different tasks you give it as you go down in this one conversation. But there
that's
is a limit.
interesting. I
There is a
didn't know that
limit.
there was a limit
Y-
to the memory.
Yes, at least that's the way it displays itself currently. Now, I don't know if that's just a limit that the programmers put in artificially,
Yeah,
but
that
there
sounds
is a
like
limit.
something where it's like there's so many people that are trying to use it that I think that that limiter could be taken off if it was just one person asking it
Possibly.
a question.
Yeah, I don't see. I don't know enough about the inner coding of it, but yes, that is possible. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know if it's a limiter that's put in artificially, like, oh, that it's not an actual limitation of the technology, but maybe it's a limitation that was put in by the software developers. I don't know. But
Yeah.
currently, yes, there is a limitation. Like, I don't know exactly what it is, but something, it's not that far. So basing based on that, I would say that right now, again, assuming that top can't just be popped off, I don't think it would be good. It would be useful for more efficiently mining Bitcoin. But if it were to turn out that the developers, had just it was just like you said, it was just
It it most
a cap.
definitely is. It's just a cap because there's so many people using it.
And
Uh,
if that is the case, then yeah, if you could somehow quote unquote remove that limitation, then yeah, maybe it would be better for mining Bitcoin. I don't know.
we'd have to
Finished
look into
idea.
that. That might be an interesting
Yeah,
thing to look into.
yeah, for sure,
Yeah, right
absolutely.
now it might be impossible, but nothing's impossible forever.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I think the next thing I want to talk to we only have like 20 more minutes, so
Okay.
I would say the VIX smash. What do you think about the VIX, the move index, the 1 day VIX? All of these things are coming out now. I think the 1 day VIX was an interesting choice to add. It's kind of counteracting all the problems that the VIX has
Well,
had, seeing how that hasn't been moving. And
yeah,
one
I
other
will.
thing, sorry,
Uh-huh.
sorry.
No,
One,
no, no,
one,
no, no.
one
Go, no,
other
no,
thing.
no.
The viewers don't know this, but me and Gramps have had conversations about this before. Of we've looked at comparisons of today and 2008, and one of the things that
Mm-hmm.
we noticed, and one of the questions that I brought up was this: Well, if you take a look at the VIX right before 2008 happened and 2020, I think let's stick with 2008.
Yeah,
Coming up to the financial crisis, you could see that there was problems coming up, but the VIX was moving down for like weeks and months beforehand. Like, and it was
yeah,
just plummeting, and like nothing could bring it up.
yeah.
And my hypothesis, my hypothesis was they were smashing the VIX, which is pretty much they were selling the VIX off and buying puts to artificially control the VIX index. Like it would, for instance, it should naturally move higher based on the fact that more people were buying puts over time. But while people were buying puts, it was actually moving in the opposite direction as it should naturally. So there was proof uh, that they came up with later on, years later after the financial crisis, that they were doing this thing called smashing the VIX, and now we're assuming that it's happening again today. So what are your thoughts on that? Because the move index is kind of showing you the comparison between with the bonds and equities, and now that's bringing a more clearer picture into what we believe should be happening, but the VIX still isn't moving. How are you squaring that circle?
I mean, it's a good question because like Johnny Bravo has brought it up multiple times. He says, the VIX is so low, the stock market should be way higher than it is currently, but yet the VIX is just keeps plummeting. My I don't know, but my hunch is basically the following. I think it's a little of column A and a little of column B. I do strongly think. I mean, like I've been airing my grievances lately about how the stock market seems to grind sideways and is slightly grinding slowly higher on bank failure optimism, and this is honestly just irritating the crap out of me. But I have to wonder if maybe it's a combination. Maybe there is a VIX smash going on. I would not be. In 10 years' time, I would not bat an eye if some information came out that there was another VIX smash. That would not surprise me in the least. However, I have to wonder if this new zero DTE option nonsense in the major indices is also contributing to it, because you know if there's extremely low volume, or pardon me, if okay, let's go back to retail traders. Like I said, retail traders are a fairly formidable force in the market. Who's buying the vast majority of zero DTE puts and calls? Retail
Some
traders.
Actually, you would be surprised. There's evidence to say that it's actually hedge funds.
Really, that's interesting. The last evidence I saw was it looked like it was mostly retail. But tell me about the hedge funds. Last I heard, it was retail doing most of this nonsense.
I can see it if I can pull that up. Uh, I don't want to. I don't want to take up too much time. But what we'll do is, if I can find some of the articles that I was looking up, I'll post them
Okay.
up on the screen in that little silence where you guys can take a look, and I'll make sure I post
Hmm.
the articles down below in the description for you guys to take a look at to read more in depth. But
Hmm.
yeah,
That's
I
interesting.
think it's a little bit of both. It's definitely it's got. I think everybody has their hands in the cookie jar at the moment,
Yeah. I mean,
and
yeah,
it's not
that's for
helping.
sure. Like, no, and I mean, because like the zero DTE options have just exploded in
Yeah,
popularity since they were so.
it's like $300 million is lost every single day on zero DTEs. It's a lot.
Yeah,
It's a lot of money.
it's an ungodly amount of money, and
Yeah.
if that money is going there, then it's probably not going to show up, and a lot of that money is going to be diverted from showing up in the regular boring old VIX.
Yep.
So I think, okay, looks like we got 10 minutes left.
Yep.
Uh, so I do think that that's kind of where I would be shocked if there's no VIX smash going on right now. That would be surprising. That would be surprising. So if I find out, 5, 10 years down the road, oh yeah, they were smashing the VIX. Who knew? It's like, well, okay, I didn't know, but I strongly suspected. But yeah, also I think the explosion of zero DT has to be at least part of it. At least part of it.
Yeah.
That would be my Yeah. Also,
So,
there is a controlled demolition aspect going. I just found out the other day, and I don't know if this is old news, but I just found out the other day. So whenever Jerome Powell goes out there and says, "Oh," or Jenny Yellen says, "The banking system is perfectly sound," anytime that happens, apparently there was a report last year that showed 722 banks were literally at below 50% asset value, and this was from third quarter last year.
yeah.
And yet, Jerome Powell literally at the last meeting said he believes the banking
Yeah,
system is robust
doctor
and
sound and
sound.
resilient, and then an hour later another bank fails.
So here's what I'm thinking. Is just quickly to wrap it up. Here's what I think there is evidence for the VIX smash because banks are just going and it's just happening over, and also the sheer number of asset value has exceeded the assets of banks that failed in '07 or whatever. So like asset wise, it's slightly exceeded in terms of the hundreds of billions of dollars. So if that's not spooking the market at all, that to me suggests there might be some. I mean, for goodness sake, I mean, the KRE almost fell off a goddamn cliff, and the VIX basically farted and went back to sleep. So I'm like, okay, I have to believe there is some kind of VIX smash going on, because the fact that there is zero fear, like, I mean, the VIX is basically saying, ain't nobody scared of nothing, like not even a little bit, not
Yeah,
even a
so
little bit.
so the question is, how long do you think that they can keep this up for? Because my prediction is somewhere
Yeah,
between 2 to 8 months we have the next crisis.
yeah. I mean, that sounds about right. I mean, it has been just about a year since the Fed tightening started in earnest, I think, something like that. Maybe a
It's
little year and
yeah,
change.
yeah. So I
So, so,
I
so
made a
12 to 18
prediction.
months, yeah.
Yeah,
Go on.
I had made a prediction about when they would start raising interest rates, and it's been about a year.
Right. And so I think the general consensus, traditional wisdom, conventional wisdom would say 12 to 18-ish months. I mean, it's hard to say for sure because each rate hiking cycle is different at different speeds, da, 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 da. But 12 to 18 months from the time they start raising rates is usually around the time you start to see the real effects of them, good, bad, ugly, or otherwise. And I think we have just crossed the 12-month marker. So within the next, yeah, I mean, I don't know if 2 months might be a little too short, but I would say like 4 days. I mean, who knows? But I'd say 8 months is a pretty good
I'm
counterbalance.
saying somewhere around September. If history
Yeah,
doesn't repeat but rhymes, the
yeah,
Lehman Brothers went down in September, I believe.
yeah,
So it's somewhere around there is where I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that
I mean, that makes
the
sense.
big
That
boom
Yeah, I
is
mean
going to
that.
happen. Now,
Mhm.
they're stuck. By they I mean the Fed.
Yeah.
Hello, devil. Uh,
Hello,
the
devil.
the uh the Fed is stuck with inflation and they are stuck with a banking crisis. Which one do you think that they care more about?
No, no,
Because I
no, no,
have
no,
my
no.
suspicions.
Now you're spreading rumors there. The banking system is
Sound
sound
and
and
resilient.
robust.
Yeah.
We heard that at the last FOMC meeting. Don't spread silly rumors.
I'm gonna
And don't you
this
dare
channel
short
is
those banks either. There's nothing to see here, folks.
yeah,
That's the other thing that's
wait
happening.
till you see what happens when they actually enact that short
I
ban.
know.
Woo!
I know. Actually, let's
Woo!
talk about that for the last few minutes. So, for anybody who's not aware, and actually I wasn't even aware of this, in '08 they did enact a short memorandum or moratorium, whatever they call it,
Yeah,
on a freeze on being able to short bank stocks. Basically, I didn't know that was a thing. I learned that the other day
they
in
did, and it
'08,
made it worse.
and it made it worse. And here's the mechanics of why. I learned the mechanics of why because short sellers are buyers. Real Because when you sell, just for anyone who's just wants a little education, when you sell something short, you are borrowing a share of something and then selling it on the open market right away. So when you're going to close your position, you close it later,
I was gonna say,
meaning
let me rephrase that. Let me rephrase that for you. Short sellers are guaranteed buyers. They're not just
okay,
buyers, they're
yes,
guaranteed buyers, which
that okay.
is
So
like
yes, that's right
that's
because
hard.
because Because just real quick for anybody who's new, when you normally real quick when you buy a stock, okay, you want to buy a share of Apple. Okay, let's see, it's at $100 and you buy it, and then it goes up to $110 in the next month, and you're like, cool, I made $10. I want to take my profit. Then you sell the share. You collect your profit. Short selling is the exact opposite. All you really need to know, folks, about the mechanics of it is a short seller will have to buy that position back eventually. I mean, unless the company that they are shorting goes completely bankrupt, then there's nothing left to buy. But as long as that stock exists, they are going to have to buy it back eventually to close that position. So if you ban the short sale of banks, what you're actually doing is, as Pigs rightly pointed out, you are removing people who are necessarily buyers from the market to close their positions. So it will make everything worse.
And then you
Um,
really only leave natural buyers and natural sellers. And if you're banning
right.
people from selling, that is going to spook everybody into selling or
Well, yeah,
shorting. If you're
if you're
banning
short, if you're buying
shorting,
short selling,
yeah.
if you start playing, God with specific stocks, and you're like, oh, okay, well, we have an open capitalist market, but you can't do short sales, you can't, and then everyone goes, whoa, I don't know what you're doing here, I don't want any part of this, sell, 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 and yeah, you're basically going to scare the crap out of anybody and everyone who's left in the market. You're going to who anyone who was, oh, this is just a temporary a pullback. This is a setback. We're gonna bounce and go higher. You ban short selling, which they are talking about doing. That would be
Yeah, so
disastrous.
so this is kind of like a hot take, but I'm actually in the camp of short sellers need to stay around. I know that's not a
Yes.
popular opinion,
Yeah.
but I'm in the short seller camp. They
Yeah.
uh their job is highly important to the balance of our market.
It is.
So getting rid of them is not the solution in any case.
No.
It just isn't.
No. And of course, and for anybody who's perhaps following meme stocks or whatever, and who is upset with short sellers, what you're actually upset with is criminals, because there are short sellers who there is a legal and ethical way to engage in short sales,
Yep.
and there are
Yep.
plenty of illegal ways. And just like there's it's insider trading. Insider trading goes both upwards and downwards. You can buy stocks and be part of insider trading. You can sell stocks and sell them short as being part of insider trading. So yeah, removing short sellers from the ecosystem is not good.
Yeah, I think
In
that's a
fact,
very
it's
important distinction that you just made. And without
yeah,
getting into it, because we're not going to have enough time, maybe that would be an interesting talk for next time. Let us know. But the
yeah,
distinction of healthy short selling and malicious short selling. Who knows?
yes,
Maybe I'll do a deep dive onto the channel later about that because that's an important distinction that people need to
yes, that's
make. I
right.
think that
There
they're just
is
indiscriminately hating short sellers without
yeah,
understanding their importance in the market and what their
yeah.
job is. So,
Yeah, hating. If you just hate all short sellers, then that's like lumping in, like for example, if you have like a pumper, like a pump and dump scheme, well, that's the bullish version of an illegal short seller,
yeah,
right? But then you're not going to say, oh, well, anybody who buys a stock is evil. No, 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 or criminal. No, no, people who pump and dump stocks, that's criminal.
yeah.
And then just like, so there's more than one way. So there's a legal way and an illegal way to buy stocks. There's a
Yep.
legal way and an illegal way to short stocks.
It's all about if you're gonna hate somebody, hate the right people.
Exactly. That's right. That's right. All right. Well, less than a minute. I guess it's probably a good place to wrap up.
Maybe. Actually, before we go, I also wanted to let everybody know if you want to be able to support the stream and everything that we do here on Higgsfield Industries, you can always buy the merch. You can always, I'm thinking about setting up a membership on our Twitter. Follow the Twitter / Higgs Plays. I have to get a specific platform for that for Higgsfield Industries as well. Make sure you follow on Twitch. That's awesome. We're getting back into that. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of live streams. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of probably gaming with the community. Let us know if you want to be a part of it. Uh, is there anything that I'm missing? I'll put a link to the charity that we work for, that we're working with, Gift Global Initiative, helping kids get education that they need
for books, book bags, shoes. They help with solar lights. Anything that you can donate really helps the cause. Guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. I know it was a short one. Let us know if you prefer the long form content or the shorter videos. We will be back either next week or the week after. We will get back on the schedule. So this is Higgs. That was Gramps. Thank you for listening to the Higgsfield Industries, The Daily Candle. Appreciate you. See you next time.